How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, February 6th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to preview today's final matchup of the 2022 African Cup of Nations, as this is the top and premier continental tournament of international soccer that Africa has to offer. And this year's tournament has been nothing short of amazing. Right now, we are down to the final two teams as Senegal is going to face off against Egypt. Senegal comes into this matchup after finishing at the very top of Group B. And Egypt comes into this matchup finishing at the top of Group D. Of course, the big headline coming into this matchup is that it is the face-off between the two elite wingers for Liverpool. You have Mohamed Salah, who sits on one side of Liverpool, who represents Egypt, and you have Sadio Mane, who sits on the other side of Liverpool's amazing attack, who represents Senegal. They've won the Premier League together. They've won Champions League together. And now they're going to face off against one another. And they're both going to take the same flight back to Liverpool. One is going to have a trophy, and one's going to have the AFCON title for 2022, and the other isn't. So, of course, I'm going to preview this matchup that's going to be taking place at 2 o'clock in Cameroon. I'm going to preview this with everything that's led up until this moment. So, first, looking at how Egypt got here. Egypt would finish in the middle of Group D. In their group, they would win 2 of their matchups, and they would end up losing 1. In their very first group stage matchup, they would have to face off against Nigeria. In their very first matchup of AFCON, they lost off of Kelechi Iheanacho's 30-minute goal. Ever since then, Egypt had won every single game since then. In Egypt's second game, they would beat Guinea-Bissau 1-0 off their 69th minute goal from Mo Salah. In their third matchup, in a game that they would have to win, Egypt would face off against Sudan, and they would pick up their 1-0 win off of Mohamed Abdelmanem's 35th minute goal. And once they made it through group stage, they would make it to the round of 16. Once they made it through the round of 16 after finishing second in Group D, they would have to face off against the Ivory Coast, who came into this matchup at the top of Group E. Against the Ivory Coast, they would end up drawing, and once they made it to penalty kicks, they would end up beating the Ivory Coast 5-4. So they would make it through the round of 16 and eliminate a top seed while doing it at the same time. Once they made it to the quarterfinal, they would end up defeating Morocco 2-1. After Morocco scored the first goal of the game in the first half off a penalty, Mo Salah would score in the 53rd minute, and then he would end up providing the assist to Trezeguet in the 100th minute to help Egypt advance past the quarterfinals into the semifinals. Once they made it to the semifinals, they would face off against Cameroon. And after the game ended 0-0, even though I would argue that I would say Cameroon did a lot more on the field itself, but it was a pretty even matchup. Egypt would end up winning it on penalties after Cameroon ended up missing 3 penalties in front of their hometown fans. So Egypt would go on to advance to this final matchup. And following yesterday's matchup, Cameroon will now be the third place team in front of their home fans. After the final today, Cameroon will receive their third place medal right before the second and first place teams receive their medals. So that is how Egypt was able to make it through Cameroon and make it to this round in particular. And taking a look at how Senegal got here, Senegal would make it here after Senegal finished at the top of Group B. They would win and they would draw the other 2 matchups. Senegal has yet to lose in AFCON this year. In their first matchup in in the group stage, they would end up beating Zimbabwe 1-0 after their 97th minute penalty kick from Sadio Mane. And they only won that game because they won that game because off of a late penalty. In their second matchup, Senegal would face off against Guinea, and in that matchup, they would draw 0-0. In their third matchup, Senegal would draw 0-0 versus Malawi, as well as their defense would hold strong, and their only goal they would score in group stage would be that penalty kick from Sadio Mane. It was just enough to get them past Guinea and Malawi into the second round, or at least into the round of 16. And after finishing at the top of their group, they would face off against Cape Verde, who finished third in Group A, and after that matchup, Senegal would beat Cape Verde 2-0. After Cape Verde drew 2 red cards in the matchup, Senegal's first goal would come after Cape Verde's second player went off. Sadio Mane scored in the 63rd minute, and then Bamba Dieng scored in the 92nd minute to help Senegal advance to the quarterfinals. In the quarterfinals, Senegal would go on to beat Equatorial Guinea 3-1. Their first goal came from Famara Didiu in the 28th minute. After Equatorial Guinea tied up the game in the 57th minute, Cheku Kouyate scored in the 68th minute to give Senegal the lead, and then Ismaila Sarr's 79th minute goal would put the cherry on top and advance Senegal past Equatorial Guinea into the semifinal. In the semifinal, they would end up beating Burkina Faso 3-1, as their first goal came from Abdou Diallo in the 70th minute. Then 6 minutes later, Bamba Dieng put them up 2-0. In the 82nd minute, Burkina Faso's Blati Toure would score, and he would make it, or I guess he would shorten the deficit to 1. But then Sadio Mane's runaway 87th minute goal would put Senegal through to the final. So now Senegal is slated to face Egypt. And no matter what, they're going to medal. But Senegal is going to face Egypt today at 2 o'clock for the final. Coming into today, there are 2 teams that are competing for that title. And by 4 o'clock, 4:30 definitely, there will be a team that is holding up that trophy as the 2022 AFCON champs. And by then, I can't wait to see what happens. And this has been an amazing tournament from beginning to end. So congratulations to both teams from getting here. And once these teams have played it, I will, of course, do a championship profile for the team that finishes on top. Congratulations to every team that was involved for an amazing tournament. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm going to come back with all of tomorrow's episodes for Monday, February 7th. And until then, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I want to thank ESPN and the FIFA, Google, and everyone else involved for giving me what I needed for this episode. I wouldn't do it without them. Thanks for listening to all 8 minutes of this piece, and I'll catch you with another piece tomorrow. Peace out.